Okay, this is the work we've done so far with Yassine and I working on costing and scheduling. So as it's right now, we've implemented, I would say, a good 90% of the IFC specification of the main things. So there's some niche things that we still haven't implemented, or at least I think they're niche. Maybe I'm wrong. So that will come a little bit later. But for most of the main things, like creating a work schedule and cost schedule, they're all there. So the file I'll be using today is this little demo file, which Idawu provided a long time ago, and I'm very grateful because I've been using it endlessly. But what I want to show first is how to convert 2x3 to 4, because all of the features that I'll be showing right now only work on IFC4, and that's a known limitation, simply because 2x3 doesn't have as good cost and scheduling capabilities. And so it's just easier if we target 4 for now, and later on, if we want, we can target 2x3. So the way to do that is, so if I just, it doesn't matter, you can do this from a blank file. And if you scroll down to the scene properties here, and I'll make this a bit, there is the IFC path tool, and there's that says rate. And by the way, whenever you're trying all this out, please run it on a latest version, latest daily build, because this stuff changes very, very quickly. So all I have to do is grab the IFC4, the IFC2x3 file, and I will just, let's say, migrate to IFC4 in there, and under the arguments, it affects a JSON list of arguments. And so we'll just say one right now, which is their destination schema we want to migrate to. And if we run that, we wait a little bit, and in a short while, it should click. And okay, so it's done. And what that's done is it has created this 64 file, which you can see is now an IFC4 file, which is great. And so now we can go and import that file, which is this one here, migrate it to IFC4, which we can use. So I guess we'll start quickly with scheduling, and then we'll move on to costing. We'll go through scheduling quite quickly because I think most of us here are more interested in costing. But it is good to know that it does exist, and Ron, it would be good to link the two because, well, I need to cost the things you're doing in your schedule. So the three main things you're looking for scheduling are work plans, work schedules, and work calendars. And the way it works is that a work plan contains schedules and calendars. So we can start with a blank work plan, and we can start with a blank calendar and a blank work schedule. And click on this here, you can edit the work schedules that are part of this plan, and I can add it. And so this schedule is now part of that. And now, as you probably already do in your existing software, you guys edit your work calendar. And correct me anytime if I'm totally off the mark here, because I am not a scheduler, nor am I a coster. This is just going by what we've seen so far. So it starts by adding the times you actually go and do your work. So you can see the car because he's going to work. And let's imagine that something that you basically do on a weekly basis, you go Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to p.m. plus, and that adds a new working time period. We can do it a bit different as well. We can do from 9 a.m. to let's say 12 p.m. and then from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So we'll have a 1 hour break for lunch, for example. So that's an example of how the time work. And this includes the number of days that are repeated weekly. And these are a few more advanced options. Recurrence interval basically means that this happens every week, but if we change this to, let's say, 2, for example, this means it happens every 2 weeks, or it happens every 3 weeks, or every weeks, or something like that. But most of the time, you'll kind of leave this at 0 because you just want it to happen weekly. End times means that you can have have this repeat for 5 times and then stop, for example. So if I set this to 5, and then for that I need to set a start date. So let's say it starts in here, it will repeat for 5 weeks and then it will stop. But I think we'll leave that blank because we're no longer, well, we'll keep things simple for now. And it's the same for exception times, which is basically the times you're on holiday, at home, rostered day off, things like that, or public holidays. And you can have as many of these as you want as you can, but we'll maybe just stick to one and the other. And so there are different types of recurrences as well. So we have a daily recurrence, which means that this basically happens every single day, which is probably not what you want to do for your holidays, because then you have a holiday every day. Then you have month unspecified date, which basically says, okay, every every 1st and 15th of the month, this happens. Or you have every first Monday of the month, every 2nd Monday and Tuesday of the month, or something like that. And this is all part of the spec, so nothing too fancy here. And then you have the variance for yearly as well. So you can have every 1st and 15th. So here's my birthday, every 2nd of October. We are going to take a day out because it's my birthday. And similarly, you can do the same as this way. You can every 2nd Monday of April or something like that. But let's just leave that alone and stick to our 9 to 5, which is a pretty basic calendar. But that's a good example. If you want to say so let's say New Year's Day, you would basically say, okay, this will be the specified date will be the 1st of January every single year, and you can, and maybe you want to give it I don't know, or like holidays, something like that. Then we create our work schedule, which is where most of the stuff actually happens. So if you press the edit attribute, you can just give it a name. So we'll call this revision 01, for example. And there's a typical fields you can enter in here. And let's just say this is, I don't know, plan flying, which we're still trying to understand. And over here is where most of the meat happens, where you're editing your tasks. So if you press this button, you add a new task, and you have your task ID on the left and your task name over here. So we'll give it an ID, something like that, and this will be excavation, and then you can always add more. So this will be, I don't know, floor systems. And this will add subtasks as well. So hey, it did work. Yes, sorry, here we are. So this will be ground floor, for example, and then we'll have level 1. And currently it's sorted by identification. So as I go and refresh the view or something, go and it will go and resort it. So you can see here, floor level 1. Then there are some ways to toggle different things being shown in your view. So this toggles time. So this dash, which is currently unset, is the scheduled start time. So you can't toggle between actual or scheduled right now. That's something we'll still have to do. And then you have the duration. So we can say, for example, that this starts on the 1st of January, and you see that this supports fuzzy date parsing. So you can type it in a few different formats, and it will just kind of work it out. So that's a quick and easy way of clicking this button and then setting this scheduled start date. But you kind of don't want to click and scroll and click. So we just have a nice, easy way of doing it here. So let's say this is a week later, and we're following the British date now because the American dates confuse us, but maybe in the future we'll fix that. Now, over here we have the duration, which is what you'll notice right now is that it typically calculate the region, and that's something we do need to do. But we have set it up so that it will calculate, I think, like if you type in the region, it will calculate the finish date or something like that. So it's still something we're still working out. So if I change that to 3 days, duration follows the ISO 8601 standard. right now you actually have to type it in that format, which is just something you'll have to learn. So it starts like this. You go P for period. You can type in something like 3 days. So if I type in 3 days, that will be, well, this is not quite correct. Obviously, these two don't match. So that's something which I think we'll fix. So you can see when I save that, it's recalculating. So we're still in the process of making it basically synchronize your changes. So change 3 days, for example, it'll update this from the 1st to the 4th, and it'll check all of your lag times and relations with other tasks. So this button here, this lets you change relationships. You can see here that you have 0 predecessors and 0 successors. So we'll say, okay, this is one successor to the task. So you do your slabs after your excavation. And then you can also add a lag time. So this button lets you edit the lag time over here. So we can say the lag value is, I don't know, 3 days. And this is working days, so not calendar days. It's actually working days. Or maybe it is calendar days. I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not a planner. Working days. Yeah, calendar days. Yeah, so that's a good little introduction. And then, of course, you can set your calendar, which, sorry, oops, I scrolled down. Your calendar, which applies to things. So if I go and click on the calendar button here, I better name this calendar. Go and change the calendar name to default, or let's say 9 to 5 office hours. That. Okay, so you can see here we can assign our 9 to 5 office hours to this task, and calendars inherit in IFC. So the goal is that if I go and assign this calendar here, you can see these two are inherited, and you can see the little asterisk next to it, which means that, hey, I've inherited this calendar. And similarly, inheritance also works for nesting of start and end dates. So if I do something like this, well, I thought that would show something here, but apparently it didn't. Maybe if I refresh this. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I guess maybe we should make it refresh and recalculate a bit more often. So you can see here it's figured out the earliest start date of all of the child tasks is this, and the little asterisk says it's calculated, and same over here. And it's worked out that, oh, okay, well, there's 0 duration. And the duration does actually understand whether it's elapsed time or working time. So for example, if I set that to 7 days here, you can see here, which I hope I've done that correctly. I might need this. Working time, 7 days is 1 to the 13th, right? Because we're 1 plus 7, which is 1 week, 8. Oh, sorry, but the first holiday, that's right, so the first count. So we're on the 9th. I'll have to check this. Let's see, so this one's a holiday. Then we have 7 working days. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you end on the 13th. So yeah, I did it correctly. Yeah. It's a bit unintuitive, but it is correct. Unintuitive for me. Maybe it makes perfect sense for schedulers. Then, of course, the interesting feature that we can generate a Gantt chart from it. So currently, this is just a static HTML thing, but in the future, it'd be nice to have this web interface linked back so you can graphically edit things here, and it will update the IFC and show up here as well. And we can associate things as well. So what we can do is when we click on IFC objects, we can say, let's say this is the and what I might do for this actually is import a more interesting work schedule. So now got imports as well, and we can import from P6 and Microsoft Project. And I have a little P6 file. Is this the one? I forget if this one's P6 or Microsoft Project. Well, yeah, I guess that was P6 because it worked. So here we have a sample project. You can see this one's a lot more full. You can see all the dates coming up for it, which is more exciting. So if I go and just pick dates, so let's say this excavation is this slab, which is obviously not correct. I press which basically toggles the assignment. So I will go and hide that, and we'll just assign a couple things to the piling mat, and we'll assign, say, more things. So let's say we'll select all walls and assign that to piling foundation, or maybe we'll select the things in the walls as well, because they come hand in hand. Okay, so all of this stuff is the piling foundation. Then maybe we need to decorate the wall, all these pins, I don't know. And then maybe all of this comes on here. And then maybe all this stuff comes in over here. All right, and then we're left with the ceiling. And so if I click on things, you can see it highlights which one it's been assigned. And if I click on any one, I can select that and go, oh yeah, here are all the which are selected for this task, and I can visualize it. So if what's my construction progress on the 18th of May, I can press the visualize button and I can say date, and this is a start date and an end date. So if you just want to visualize a single date, we just need to give it a start date. And I can press this button here and it will say, oh, okay, here we go. Everything in gray has been constructed. Everything in green means it's currently under construction, which correlates to the select items. And everything in red, you have not assigned yet to a task, so dunno, no idea. And we can also, oh, thanks.
Nice.
And currently we have no way to reset these colors, which is not amazing, but that's okay. You can kind of just like press it again and it'll do that for you. And we can animate it as well. So if we, let's say we look date and we'll start on the 21/05/03, we'll finish on 06/12. Oops. Sorry. Did I accidentally close my Blender? Yes, I think I did. Sorry, I have too many hotkeys on my thing. It wasn't a crash, by the way, if people are thinking that, because I accidentally pressed the close button. I aborted it. So I'm going to very, very quickly do that one more time.
Yeah, it was a nice example.
And just so that we can see the last.
Again, also, what is the button that shows you all the elements in one task?
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's go and import P6 XML. Okay, so go to our schedule, bring that, and we'll turn the dates, which are pretty useful. And this time I'll do it kind of just raw. So what I like to do, actually, what I've tended to do is split my screen in this way, and I like to show object properties as well as a little search, so I can just go for things like, sorry, not that. So IFC wall, standard case in this particular scenario, and it just makes it really easy to go and select various things. And I'm just going to just arbitrarily pick a bunch of stuff. Oops, sorry, click. There we go. Yep, that's a sign. Assign. Sure. And maybe we do the lights last. Who knows? Whatever. And now that we've done that, yeah, so the button you're looking for, Ioannis, is this selection button here.
Okay.
So if we press it, for example, it will highlight those things. And you can, of course, filter them. Once it's selected, you can filter them within Blender. So I press Shift-H to isolate just those, for example. Alt-H to re-show. So you can do that with any one of these.
Okay, great.
Back to the visualize thing. 05/03 and 21/06. Not going to press that shortcut again. So yeah, now if I press this, what it's done is it's actually resized my animation sequence between frame 1 and frame 138 because it has calculated that's the amount of frames you need to animate in order to show a animation where 24 frames correlates to 1 week of real life construction or real life. And there's different ways, so you can have it duration based, so that's 1 second is equal to 1 week. You can change these, that will recalculate it. And what it's doing here is you can see building up the model, and it pops up green when it gets built, and it just kind of plays on up endlessly. Yeah, cool. That's funky. And then the Gantt chart, of course, looks much nicer on a bigger. So
impressive.
That's great. Where for the duration, this period with W and D, where can we find more for the documentation?
yes, you can just read the
Duration time.
Wikipedia page. Yeah, it's actually really easy to pick up.
Okay.
Always starts with a P for P, unless it's a negative duration, in which case it's negative P, right? In case like a lag or lead time type of thing.
Okay.
And if it's a non-time, like a week or a day or a month or a year, you basically do like 1W, means 1 week. 1 week, 5 days is 1W, 5D. Like, it's really easy. And then if you want to put time, you have to put T. And then you have, 5 hours, 3 minutes, 2 seconds. But most of the time, everybody will just be using days, except for this one, because life happens.
Okay.
So
very good.
this is the one here.
I reckon we'll also change it just to show 5 instead of 5D. It'll be easier on the eye. Just like we've done
Agreed.
with the dates recently. Yeah, anyway. It's something I didn't get around to do yesterday. I was deciding the editing there. Anything.
Yeah, so yeah, there's still a lot to do. So again, like if I just date, for example, like it will recalculate this one, or but it didn't.
Yeah. Refresh. Maybe.
Okay, all right. Well, if I typed it in this way, like 8 over here, and then I press the save button, then it'll probably work. Yeah, it calculates it.
Okay.
But what it doesn't do, like if I press this one here, it doesn't recalculate the successor, because what it needs to do is actually push forward the successor by the new finish date. But it hasn't done that. So we still have it shuffle things around, and I guess that's really important to know, because what you said, it's probably impractical right now for really useful. But once we fix those few things, I reckon it can start being used a bit more.
Yeah, ladder button, I guess, reschedule.
Yes, so to guide people on the 200 billion buttons we're throwing here, but which we need to redesign, the first one is basically predecessor and successor relationship. So this is where you do finish starts and start to finishes, lag times, lead times. The second button lets you select associated with that task. The third one tells you scheduled time. So it does scheduled start, finish, early start, finish, late, blah, 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 the whole shebang. It doesn't look very nice right now, to be honest, but hey, it works. So percentage completion. So all this stuff to do with task duration is put over here. And then you have calendar assignment, which is currently assigned to the trades 5-day work week, apparently. This splits the task, like simple task attributes itself, which oddly enough has the milestone tag in here, which probably should be, should it? No. Yeah, I guess if it's a milestone, it doesn't need to have start and start date. I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm just fall back.
Yeah, I don't know why it's stored in the. What's the milestone and something that has a start and end? Maybe the duration is 1 day.
Yeah, maybe, Then we have adding tasks. This adds tasks to that, like this guy here. and this one deletes. So this one you can see has got a few tasks, but we've tested it on, task trees which have I think I did one with a couple thousand tasks on it. I'm pretty happy. A little bit of lag, but pretty happy.
Great, great.
Yeah, so I guess we'll move on to costing now. So costing is a little bit similar, where you have a schedule and you can give it a name and you can call your schedule Bob. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can from, which I don't fully understand the difference between all of them quite yet, but I'm not a coster. And so I'm just going to pick cost plan. But I think schedule of rates is going to be super useful in the future. Like I think later on that will allow us to apply unit rates to things later on. Sorry, how do I say it? No, not unit rates. Templated rates, so that in the future, if you add like a rate for concrete, it'll be like, hey, I get concrete. Here are a whole bunch of cost values and quantities to get you started. But anyway, here's a cost plan named Bob. And if we press this button here, now we get our tree, which is currently empty because we're from scratch. And there is no import function because I don't know anything software to import from. So if you know enough, that would be cool. Or if you think it's useful, that would be cool as well. So it's pretty simple. You press plus, and then you press plus to add a sub item, which is kind of like, similar to scheduling. But the columns are a little bit different, naturally. So if I say here we're going to cost all our walls, and let's just, by the way, so here's the thing now, because I've animated, but the objects, what I can do is I can select all of them, and then in the keyframes here, I can press delete keyframes, and that will delete all the animation. So I can just, right now there's no button for that, so you just do it, vanilla Blender style. And let's get my color. So let's say I'm costing some walls here, and costing must be linked into a quantity and a unit value. So if you're quantifying nothing, it defaults to 1, and the unit, and this is like meters cubed, is hard coded at the moment, which is totally wrong. In the future, it does need to be renamed to whatever the detected quantification thing is. So if it's length, it will show whatever the project length unit is. So that still needs to be done, but it's just aesthetic. The quantification does. Then there is the unit cost, and if you do not quantify anything, then it's considered the total cost. And finally, it's the quantity multiplied by the unit cost equals the total cost for that cost item. So if we have so if we quantify something, you can see first it's saying, hey, here's a quantity, and it doesn't know what type of quantity to pick up from because we assigned nothing from the model. But that's okay, we don't need to. We can hard code in a manual quantity for a cost item that is not in the model. So we can say, in this case, we are doing a area. Press the plus button, and now we have a new quantity of area. And the rule is that once you've added an area, you're not allowed to add the other one. You can, because the interface is not clear yet. But in theory, you shouldn't have anything other than an area, otherwise it doesn't make sense. I've added one area. And so we'll say, okay, the area value is 5 meters, let's say. And so we press the save button, and there's just a description. And there's a formula here which shows you how you worked it out, but I think it's just mathematic. I don't think it actually, there's nothing intelligent in the spec for how to have this formula. Excuse me. So there we go. We've got 5 squared, not meters cubed. And if I press this button, it lets me edit the unit cost. And so the unit cost is fixed. Fixed means arbitrary. I'll explain the other two in a short while. And a fixed cost basically is a 0 at the moment, but we'll edit that. And we'll set a fixed cost of $4. And these date fields allow you to say cost start and stop at various times, which I think has to do with linking to the schedule, but it's a little bit fuzzy right now. And I'll talk about category and conditions and operators in a bit. So we have a simple cost of fixed cost $4. So 5 times 4, 20 bucks. And so let's call that arbitrary, for example. And let's add a new one. We'll call it walls. And this time we'll assign a few things. And so I'll assign those tools. And these walls, you can see, have some attributes, but more importantly, they have a quantity set associated with it. And this is what you need in your BIM model. You need a quantity data to be in your BIM model. If you have that, then unfortunately you cannot link it to your model element because it has no quantities to be taken off from. But there are a few things which I'll describe on how to solve that situation if somebody gives you a crap model. So this one here, you can see it just like before. It's got a little down, so I can see if I've got things assigned to it. And I should be able to select as well. Just, yeah, so here we are, the two things I've assigned to it. And now if I paint the takeoff, you can see it's detected what properties I can go and assign to it. So I can, and you can see how the list on the right corresponds to the list on the left. So in this case, let's say I don't know, we're doing the gross volume of the concrete. So I can do gross volume and then press plus, and it's linked these two values to here. And this is, once you've linked it, it understands that you're using volume. And now every time I take a new wall, so this wall, for example, and I add it to here, it's already linked. It just just does more. So now I can go to my search and search for all my walls, and then and I can just assign it. And here it is. It's got all my walls volumes. And the disappeared for a moment just there is because I actually unassigned it rather than this. But anyway, now it's there. So yeah, we've got 25.5 meters of whatever this material is, and now we can set our fixed cost, our unit price. And so I'll describe what these two things are. So before the connection cut, I was talking about the different types of unit values. You can unit cost values you can put for a cost. So here we used a cost item, which basically means that you type in a number and that's it, end of story. Now we're going to do a little bit more fun. You can do a fixed cost item, but let's imagine this time we're going to have a here. I'll create a blank one, so I'll call this a test one, and I'll create a sub cost item in it. And for this particular cost item, so what we can do is create something based off. Oh, okay, sorry, I'm just trying to think how to explain this. All right, here. This one is also a fixed, and we'll say here is 5, and yeah, we'll just leave it as 5. So here's another one. So 1 times 5 is 5. Nice and simple. So now on the parent cost item, what you can do is rather than a fixed cost, you can say parent item. It's 1 multiplied by 0 is 0, which is no. You don't want that. That gives you wrong values in your spreadsheet. So what you can do is you can choose the sum value, and the sum value basically says sum up all my child cost values. You can see the little asterisk there going, hey, I'm derived. And so if I have another one, so we'll call this A and we'll call this one B as an example. And this one has another fixed cost value, and this time he has a fixed cost value of R, for example. You can see that 5 plus 4 is 9, and so he's worked it out, which is all great.
And it
So that's kind of
all the children and the children of children and everything.
Correct.
Sum.
So basically, summing just adds up all of the child cost items.
All of the child, yes, okay. So even the child of the child, let's say. Or not.
Good question. Let me check.
Yes.
unless
No, it does not. It does not. And
Just
design. I think
but
that's
the
by
first
design.
one is not being derived from the nested one.
and
Because
okay, then there was some, and the other was the other option.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a bit. Now I'll create another one. I'll call this. So this is sum, just so that we're about this, and this one is test category.
Mm-hmm.
So now we'll create another sub item, and this time I'll create a categorical-based cost. And so let's say this is the cost for pumping concrete, something like that. And it's exactly the same as the fixed cost. Now you've given it a category name. Literally the only difference right now. And so you can see that category is listed as pumping concrete. And so let's say this is 2, for example. And we can add more things. So we can add another thing for the testing the concrete, for example. And let's say testing the concrete, $3. And so you can see now 2 different categories of costs. So you can build up various kind of costs of cost value. Now for the parent, you can, so if I did a sum here, this will give us 5, right? Because it's nice and easy. But now, instead, what if I did a category cost and I put category as testing concrete? Now it's the same as sum. It will add all child cost items, but only those that belong to the testing concrete category.
Oh. And the categories
And
are in this C, named C. Yes, is there.
in here.
And you shoot them down. Okay.
Yeah, so it's ignored the pumping concrete, but added only the testing concrete. And the example they give is, I'll give you the example. Let's say they have a raw concrete mix, whatever it is, or I don't know. These are bad examples because I'm not a coster. And let's say this 10, nice round number. And the reason is that you add things with formulas. So if, for example, here, we want to have this be the sum of the pumping concrete, and then the raw concrete mix, a little bit different, and we are going to edit this one, and we're going to say this cost item will have a tax to it, and so we're going to use a formula. We're going to say that this one is multiplied. This is a multiplication of 2 things. In fact, we don't need this one because that's not the whole thing. Sorry. This is a multiplication of 2 child items: a raw concrete mix with a fixed value multiplied by a fixed tax of 10%, which, sorry, 0.1. Is that working? Okay. That looks like a bug. Hey, I think that's a bug.
Okay.
oh no, that's not how I think it's meant to be working. The first one is
okay.
an add, and the second relationship is a multiply. You have to add the arithmetic digital.
Can I do? I have
Well,
multiply. Multiply this multiplied by that. So let me do this, and then what I will do is I'll set this to add a new, and just set this to, I don't know. Okay, great. So this has worked. Let me see if 0.1 works, because that's what I wanted to type in. Okay, now it works. I have to see what was up there, but this is the intention. So you can see what it's done is taken 3 plus 5, and said, by the way, now we're going to have this multiplied by this, which is equal to 1, which 6.
I did this kind of differently. I don't know if you pull up the example from the IFC schema attached, you would see that it's the highest, well, the root task with text calculation, not the cost
Correct.
items themselves. So
It is the parent cost item here.
yeah. So here you add two values. You need to add.
Well, in this case, I'm multiplying two values. So this is a component. Sorry, we're getting a little bit technical here. Do you see these components? These are two components. One component 1 and component 2. It's clearly confusing. We gotta make it less confusing. But I think this is enough to say that there's some type of logic here.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
well,
So we have fixed sum and categories in that, let's say, menu.
And then with every one, what was that?
Let's try something. If we add two items there under the test category, and the point is to get a second nested item.
Yep.
And follow this.
Sorry, what was that?
To follow.
We don't hear you.
Oh, okay. So,
We cannot hear you very good, Yasin. Almost not.
better? No, no.
Not very.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah? Okay, that's better then. I was saying if you add the first item being the formwork, the second one is concrete, and both have labor and material, and it's only the material that has tax applied to it, then you would be making it work. I'm not sure the relationships are correct for the cost value components.
I think the cost values I gave, pumping, testing, and raw pumping, these are garbage and probably misleading because I'm not a coster. Maybe the example here would make more sense, like the material which has a tax applied to it, or something like that makes more sense. So ignore what I said here. This is very misleading, simply because I don't know what the correct categories would be as a coster. But
sure, that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't have. Well, the point of the first category is just sum up things that are included.
correct.
Use things, whereas right now you're applying the calculation to the root item itself. Well, you're adding weird things there and trying to calculate them straight off from the root task, from the root item. Sorry. Whereas you should only be picking things that exist in the cost item, sum them up correctly. So if you were to add a second cost item like we did, and we just give it two categories, one labor and one material. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, let's try the example and.
Yeah. So let me redo this. It is a whoa. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's a lesson for everybody. Do not delete the parent cost item. That's a bug. So let's recreate that, and we should that bug. but let's redo that example quickly following the Building Smart example, and maybe that will make a bit more sense. And I'll try to be clear. So we create a new cost schedule, edit the top tree, and so we have a cost item called total, which they have here. And they have two sub items called forms and concrete. So let's create those two. And the concrete has an area, the forms has an area of 3,000. Now, it's been actually done, by the way, so it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, if we've coded it correctly, we get the exact same value. So 3,000 meters, feet, whatever, doesn't matter. And the concrete is 100 area. And okay, so now we have a cost type of material for forms. So this will be a category called a material category, which is a value of 3. That's nice and cheap. And then 118 for the cost material of concrete. And yep. Okay, and we also have a labor cost of 2 for forms. Add a new one. And we also have a labor cost of 2 as well for concrete. So so this current subtotals is 15,000 and 12,000. So that's good. We're doing okay so far. So now we're going to do the tricky bit. We're going to set up the cost values for the, and the total has a cost value which has 2 components where we add these 2 things together. The first is we are going to add a tax plus the sum of everything. So we're going to add we're going to have a regular cost item, and this cost item is going to add, so we'll enable that, to a sum item, which is a 27,000, that's this one here, plus a tax, and plus a tax, and this tax is calculated by multiplying and I'm really hoping this works, because otherwise, well, we coded it wrongly. So the tax will be multiplying the material, which is the category. And the UI here, obviously, as you can tell, is pretty crappy, which is 20800, good, and a fixed value of 0.1. And this one here is 0.1. And okay, and then the final value we should get is 29080.080. Yay, we coded it correctly! Hooray! Tax is 2080, which is 2080. Great. So we coded it correctly. It works, but it's really obviously like this UI. Oh my goodness, it's terrible. So yeah. So this is like really crap. You know, this one is nested. This one, which is these 2 nested, but this one has nested on this one. But it works. Yes, it does work.
It works. It works.
Yeah, the UI is shockingly bad. And it's, you know, it's calculating all the sub-items. Yes, perfect. If we wanted to, we could then split this out into a spreadsheet in theory, and it would hopefully look nicer as well.
Imagine now you can have.
Am I correct? Thinking the single IFC cost related, the relationship is an IFC rel nest relationship.
You can actually check if you're interested about anything. There is a debug down here. Right, it is, but I'm just showing you like if you're interested. So hover over this, you can see cost item says 4030. So if you you can actually inspect that cost item, and you can see all of its relationship. So over here, nested by, and yes, it is nested by. And that's forms and concrete. So we'll click on the first one, and we can see forms. We can go back and click on one. We see. So you're absolutely right. Nest is at the relationship.
Okay, cool. Because what I was thinking is if I could assign, for example, an IFC cost item to an IFC element type. I'm not. I try to, while following your excellent demonstrations, I try to also look up in the IFC documentation if this is a kind of thing that can be done. But I didn't got an answer for now.
You can do it from the documentation, but you cannot do it yet within the Blender UI. Currently, we have only built the ability to cost individual instances of object, not object types, not element types. So if I click on this one, I'll create a new one here. So we'll call this walls. And I select this wall and I click here. I have now assigned the wall to that cost item. The column and the wall are now related. And prove that to you in the IFC. Into the debugger and check that is 0362. And this cost item, you can see here has a sense, and it is assigned. Sorry, it's controls. I think, yeah, calls the wall. So the connected to the wall. Now, your question was, can you assign it to a type, for example? The answer is, in theory, yeah, but I'm not sure if we've coded it. In fact, let's check. Let's see. What happens if I click on a furniture type and I assign? And let's check again and see how lucky we are. Controls. Hey, you can do it. Hey, we built the feature without even knowing we built it. So yes, you can do that.
Eureka! I think this is a very important feature because, for example, in theory, I think it should allow me, for example, I see those windows. This looks like to be basically the same object, two instances of the same object type. So I could, I think, thinking as a coster, assign a cost to a Windows type and then have the total, ask or somehow calculate the total cost of all the windows with the same type, or attribute a cost to this type, so I get this final result. Anyway, not sure if I.
Well, what we can do here is, so let's say I pick this window, and now over here I say, let's select all windows of the same construction type. So I press this, and there's two of the same window in this project. And I know you're talking about the type, but I'll just show you this for a moment. If I assign them, then over here, if I think this will work, if I tell it to count the windows, and I press it, you can see it's printed that there are two windows in the project. So maybe that's also relevant. I don't know. Just thought I'd mention that feature.
Yes, that's relevant because we need to know both the total quantity, or the split up quantity eventually, speaking as a coster, split up quantity by level, by building, by total. I think this is giving me the total, and then I need to assign a cost to a type from time to time. I think it's also a very good feature to assign individually because this can happen. For example, like assigning a different cost to the two windows because I model like them like that, but I could have a feature in this particular windows, for example, solar blind in the left, and there is nothing in the right. But they could be exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I think this could be something that could be a user case.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, there are many other things that you can possibly think of assigning to, which we haven't yet covered, because look at this fancy thing, resources. So this covers things like equipment that's not in the model. So yeah, we should have a brief chat about that as well. But this is just the first pass at it, and we will, yeah, hopefully, if we continue meeting regularly and coding, we can make this.
Oh, let me tell, this is amazing. It was just not. It was just to know what's coded or not right now. That this is really amazing.
Ah, great. Yeah. So I guess I'll continue a little bit with some of the other things which have also been recently added for costing and scheduling. There are resources as well. So resources basically fall two categories, and you can either add a subcontracted resource, which is somebody you're paying to do the work, and crew, which is your own team of people. That's how I understand it, but don't listen to me. I don't understand these things, so that's my best guess. So if I add a subcontractor, now we get a whole bunch of new toys to play with. We can go and say this is, let's say, the electrical subcontractor, and we can add 4 types of sub-resources to them, and it's nested in similar ways. So the 4 types are equipment, so this would be the electrical subcontractor's tower crane, because that's the tool they use. The labor will be the operator. Material would be concrete, and product would be formwork, as some examples. In theory, you can also add more sub-resources to them, and as typical, you have a few things you can edit, which is he's a laborer who does, I don't know, electrical things. Yeah, electrical things. Electric guy. But that's pretty much all you can do. What does this button do? I don't even know. Assign resource. I don't know what that does.
It assigns it to product.
Okay, yeah. And I can't remember what that means. Like, does this mean that it assumes the resource or something? I forget. We have to check.
If the, well, assign it to product, so if the information side resource up, don't assign it. May not even, or if it does, then yeah. If it adds information to the resource, then we should link it so that we can get some information out of it. That's but for now, we also haven't implemented assigning sources tasks.
Yeah. So you're seeing your here and there, but I'll try to summarize what I did here. Basically, we haven't built this, and so resources kind of just sit here, and we cannot assign them to time or cost items yet. But that is something you can do in the spec. It's just we haven't built those things.
Okay, it's clear.
I think this says that this consumes. I think, but don't quote me on that because I have to double check that. Similar paradigm as before. You click on the thing. Sign.
Depends on any case. This is where all costs ultimately arise from. If we really want, so if you add all the subcontractors, their costs, base costs, and their quantity as well, whenever they work, assign it to tasks, so on and so forth, with your own crews, etc., then you can have the whole detail. Usually, it's not that used yet. We haven't, but
Yeah.
coming. That's next.
So I'll try and repeat kind of what I'm hearing, simply because I don't know, it's just me, but I'm only hearing like every other word. But I think you've seen saying that ultimately everything can stem a lot from resources, because resource is not shown here, but resources can also have unit quantities and costs as well. And once you link that to a cost or a task, it can then derive those unit values from the resource somehow. But I personally don't know too much about it because I haven't fully implemented it. Well, we haven't implemented anything at all to do with that. So hopefully it will get clearer, more get built.
And this is where I looked into it a bit fast because of that process scheduler application, and basically this is where all our product. Yeah, it's to complete the whole picture, and ultimately we can make some nice. We want to, although it's unusual, go and use applications like
I heard very little of that, Yassine, but I heard mention of the process scheduler, which is the super cool thing that Thomas working on. Thomas Paviot, I'm not sure. I think the T is silent in French, where basically you can set up resource cost, productivity, as well as how much work it takes to complete a task. And just this really fancy type of math, which is really amazing. The computer can then optimize schedules and your resource usages and resource allocation, which I thought is absolutely amazing. But yeah, maybe that will be, we can go into that a bit more depth some other meeting, especially when we've done a bit more on resources. But yeah, I'll do a little bit more on a couple of minor things. So there's two issues that I've often found when doing looking the cost items and trying to quantify them. The first is that is something like this. So you can see that over here, the wall, if I scroll down, I can see it has a quantity set, and if I click here, it has no quantity set. And usually this and sometimes you can go back to the author and say, please export your IFC properly, but sometimes you can't do that, or sometimes you're doing it yourself, so you have to calculate it yourself. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you will find a property which stores some quantity. So, for example, you can see here a property set called dimensions, which stores area and all of this stuff. But the problem is that we cannot that. So I took this slab and I linked it to a new thing called slabs, and I tried to add it here. It won't give me anything, because it'll say, hey, you don't have any real quantity data to pick up from. So for that, to solve that, I've created this very bad patch, which hopefully I'll improve, which does convert properties to quantities. And basically you go and you select the file, and you should do this before you load the file. And if I type it in there, and I have to remember what it expects. I think you type in the name of the quantity, so, of the property. So let me quickly check what it expects. Okay, the source property name, destination quantity name. So if the source property name is volume, for example, and we want it to up ideally in this field called gross volume, what we can do is we'll run that, and we'll give it two arguments. We'll say volume and gross volume. So this is and destination, and if you run this and it's done, and this is another Blender window, so I'll just create a new one, and I'll import the fixed version, and now this slab, hopefully if we're lucky, hey, there we go. So now you can see it's stored correctly, and now we can continue our costing exercise, which I didn't save the file, but if I did, it wouldn't So now I'm starting from scratch, but if I save the file, then I could do that. And now if I assigned it, it goes, hey, I can pick up gross volume now, and now I can link it, which is great.
Awesome.
So that's one thing you might come across. This is a bit not very user friendly, but hey, get it working first, make it look better. And another issue is, what if you want to calculate it yourself? You want to actually fill in these values. So there's a few little tools which look kind of very messy here. There's some manual ones. So if I calculate object volumes, it can calculate it for me. And there's some assumptions it makes. So there's assumptions that this is a manifold geometry, because if it's not manifold, then, well, computers don't understand. You can also calculate specific face areas. So let's say I just wanted to these top faces, but nothing else, because this is a thing for roof thing, and you don't paint the under. So once I've selected them, I can go and calculate the areas for that, which is 32 square meters. By the way, everything here is square meters, because I can't remember if I coded imperial conversions. Maybe not. Shouldn't be too hard to add. Same with edge length. So let's say we just want to get the perimeter formwork, so we can go and select here just some edges, and then we press that. So this allows you to do very detailed quantity adding up of the items that you selected, and you can do this with multiple items. So if I want to add on plus this edge of this object for whatever bizarre reason, it adds up to 30, for example, or both of these together is 8, for example, cubic meters. Similarly, but that's for like very things, and sometimes you don't want to do that. And I've got all my types showing. Let me hide my types because it's creating a mess. Sometimes you actually want to run an automated process. So here, right now I've just done 2. This one is a dummy thing which doesn't yet work because I'm still finalizing it. So what if you want to count a whole bunch of things all at one go? So you can say, you can pick an algorithm or a quantity takeoff algorithm. And right now there's 3, but there'll be much more, I assume. So we'll start off with height, which is a super simple one, which basically gets the Z height. And so if you press this button, it will attempt to work it out. So in this case, it's 0.15, which is 150 millimeters, which is how the thickness of the slab, which is this in here. That is this. And so if I take a look at this slab also doesn't have it. So let's say 200 slabs, none of them have the height, and that's really important to me. I can go and have these 2, and let's just see. So if I click on here, let's see where it should belong. Depth. So let's say this should belong in a field called depth. So I can type in here, it should be sorted into slab quantities depth. And now if I select, hundreds of slabs, and I press this button, and now you can see it has it filled out. So that's depth, and then this one is depth as well. And this one I didn't click on, so let's press that, and now he has it calculated as well. So that lets you kind of like bulk calculate an algorithm of sorts. And same volume. So let's say this one has no volume data, and you want to put in the gross volume. You do the exact same thing. You switch to a volume calculation. You go and say, all right, let's go and select all of my slabs. If I can spell slab correctly. And now I'll go and click on this, and done. So now all of my slabs have got the gross volume filled out. So that's 4.4, and this is 0.42. It's a nice, easy way to do bulk calculations on objects that have nothing. And yeah, so there'll be also more complex stuff. So you saw formwork there. So formwork is not a full calculation. You have to do some fancy things. And often you group many objects together. So an example of that, of where this happens, is let's say you have a thick slab or something like that, and let's say you have a beam over here. Let's make it a bit. Okay, so we'll just select. So this is how often your BIM model would come in. You'd have one object here, one object here, one object here. And what you might want to do is you want to calculate the formwork for this. So basically you want to calculate, all of this face area, but not this top face area, and then this face area. And that's a pretty tricky thing, right? It's not something we do manually. And at the same time, because they're separate objects, you don't want to double count this edge. You want to count this, but this little edge inside, this face, kind of like where these two things, you want to stop at this line. Like this. Is this kind of making sense to people? Or am I kind of describing it badly? Yeah. So that's where these algorithms come in, because they will automatically resolve those types of tricky situations. For those wondering how it's in vanilla Blender, you can always do it in vanilla Blender. So these buttons basically automate that process. So if I were doing this without automation, I would click this and join it and remesh it, and then I would go basically select. This is a very quick way in a few seconds. So we'll select similar normal. Okay, great. So this is the form required, and I obviously didn't do it. I did it very quickly and very sparsely, so that's not quite correct there. That would be the formwork required to pour that slab. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to do that by 200, right? So we create these, and maybe we'll even offer a way to have people custom code them, so it runs a thing that automatically gets, so you can run function if you wanted.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've run out of stuff to say. Hopefully that's a good course. There's so much more to do. But yeah, we need feedback and building and stuff like that.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff to try, let's say, but yeah, great work.
Thanks. Was there any questions that I missed? Yes, every task does have the ability to be as a milestone. That is correct. The UI for it is a bit terrible. Click 3 or 4 times, but one scroll, click 3 times, 3 clicks. The UI is killing. Is that like a bad killing? Good killing? Subs can have different units. Ooh, good question. I think so. I think sub cost items can have different units. Within a single cost item, they
sum up things. That's what.
Yeah, so there you go. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay, yeah, so if there are any other questions, let me know. Where's the browser?
I have a question, Dion. While I'm editing cost scaling or task or time scale, can I use undo to, like undo what I have done? Can I do like that kind of thing?
No.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet. We never make mistakes. No undo.
You just go forward.
Yeah, I see. We have a lot of tools that I didn't know that you have used today, and I didn't know we had them in BlenderBIM. So it's great.
But we don't have a undo feature. So you're right. We need that.
To be
It's
fair, I'm actually undoing quite a lot when I do these things, it's fine. It's only deleting that's not. But yeah,
Um, I wouldn't confidently tell people to press undo because that can lead to things that they think is a bug, but it's not actually a bug. So yes, in some scenarios, you will not notice any ill effects when you press the undo button, and it will look as though it worked. But in other scenarios, well, don't go there. It gets it gets sticky. So yes, we do actually need to sit down and build a lot of new, which let's face it, it's a little bit boring sometimes. But yeah, we do need to sit down and do it.
for sure. Anyway, I've been trying it, pushing it so that I can see if there are any errors that may come up.
Well, let's see right now. Press undo a few times. And I think I've run out of my undo stack, so I didn't do anything damaging. But yeah.
Right. So
By the way, I would also like features if you haven't seen them before. They let you color code things. So here we are coding by element type, which is super useful. Or we can color code by properties as well. So for example, let's say we want to know, and I'll give an example here. So let's say this particular guy does not have a depth. So we'll nullify him. Hey, is that a bug? Is that not a bug? I don't know.
oh, soon.
Anyway, I'll delete him, and I'll check out later. Maybe because I pressed undo. Yeah, don't press undo. Quantity slab based quantities, depth. So let's say we want to color code based off that property. So we can do slab base quantities depth, and right now we don't care about the value of it, so we're keeping it blank. And we can code, and you can see that it's one value in it. This has another value in it, and then everything of this color is empty. So this immediately we can spot that, hey, this guy is not quantity, whereas he, or something like that. So that's a neat way of doing these
So
things.
you are coloring based on the slab base QTO, the depth. Oh.
Yes, the depth. So this has one depth, this has another depth. And then if I filled this in, if I, well, let's do this. So we do height and depth. And then if we color that in again, you can see now he and he have the same color. So I can say your one depth, your depth. See, that was not too obvious to me before, actually. Only now I'm realizing that this is 0.15 and this is rounding error. Okay, we fixed those. That's just terrible. So yeah, we'll fix that.
I was
That's
thinking
very
maybe
interesting.
we only do that once actually added cost type schedule test competition and color certain.
Sorry, Yassine, I
I
heard
don't hear you.
nothing. I didn't hear anything.
Guys, I have to go in a while.
All right.
Yeah, so in fact. So yeah, there's quite a few other toys probably. Now that I realize there might have been some other basics I should have covered, but anyway. Yeah, download the build. I think the latest build is working because the edit's being a BCF system, which broke the build. So maybe tomorrow's build, the day after, download the daily build from GitHub. Try it out, break things, and please post 100 bugs and things and suggestions of improvements, and let's make it better.
Great, great. However, this is very useful. This coloring, let's say, in general, for the I've seen, also for to inspect other quantities, other properties, can be useful.
It's a beautiful tool. I use it very, very often.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
See you guys, and Dean, you can organize the next one when we're meeting again.
Maybe in 2 weeks' time rather than next week. What do you guys think? Is this time acceptable, or should we try something else?
I'm okay with this time.
All right then.
I
So
think it could be good. Maybe 2 weeks, but as we want.
yeah. All right. Okay. So we'll take it in the forums then. All right, guys. We'll
Okay.
post this video there.
Thank you, Dion. It was a very
Not a
good,
problem.
very good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye everybody.